System riding to the core. Yeah. Reppin' inner city left. This is the Inner City Left broadcast. Today is Tuesday, April 29th. I am Amin TMK alongside Emoja Lil Tanky Sumler. You know him, you love him. What's up, Emoja? How are you doing today, my good friend?
Man, living in the middle of the pause, and I'm with it. Well, I mean, I have to be with it, right? Whether you're with it or not, with it exists. So
yeah, whether you with it or not. So, like Bear Grylls and a camel carcass, let's get into it.
If you know, you know.
Let's talk about this. We haven't mentioned the conflict in Ukraine, at least on our broadcast. So let's jump into that. Couple new developments coming out of Ukraine. I will start with this, actually. We know that the Trump administration has been, sending, whether it's Kellogg or what's the other guy, the
Witkoff.
They're trying to get Witkoff. They're trying to get, like Trump says, I think he does want to kind of stop this war, and he wants to be a tough negotiator, whatever that means. And basically, they're bringing basic. I'll say this, and I'll let you know. Let me know what you think about it. It seems as if these sides, both the United States, who is brokering this, obviously, is bringing both non-starters to both Russia and Ukraine. So here's the thing. You've heard Trump kind of talk about Crimea. That's, Obama's fault. He's kind of trying to do everything he can to place blame on the Ukrainian war on the Democrats. Of course, the Democrats have plenty of blame. And basically, when Trump was like, look, Crimea is going to have to be on the table, or kind of hinting at it, basically, Zelensky's like, nah, we're never going to accept that. And it's so funny because we've already seen Crimea do this referendum. They overwhelmingly voted to join Russia. Maybe you don't believe that, whatever. I tend to believe it myself. And it just kind of seems, right, like the non-starters that they're just non-starters on both sides. What are your thoughts on that?
Man, I'm going to try to be brief on this Ukraine thing, because I know people are kind of at their threshold for even interest on a thing. We bring it up only because in great game politics, it matters, right? It's madness. It's like watching that scene in Lord of the Rings when there were the treants and they talk all freaking day, and the treants come back and they're like, we've just agreed y'all are not orcs, right? That's what these negotiations are. Except that after the long talks, we can't even agree that they're not orcs, right? We can't, no one is even talking about Crimea except for the Europeans, right? Everyone else has moved the fuck on. Certainly the people that live in Crimea, and so the West wants it both ways. They want the world to believe that organically there's a referendum that happened in Ukraine in 2014. They kind of kicked out the old guard that were the legitimate Democratic leadership in the Maidan coup, right? But then what happened in, Crimea is completely, it's a coup by the Russians, right? So they want to have it both ways, But again, it goes to show how often everything that we're told is holy is actually only holy for the oppressed. And what I mean by that is the way that people act with these things. We've got this great theater of Trump not wanting to deal with Zelensky, J.D. Vance kicking him out, Zelensky calling him a bitch under his breath in Ukrainian, hoping that nobody would hear it in the era of 24/7 news, and you know what I'm saying? And then you got Zelensky chasing this man down at a fucking funeral, right? If I was the type of person to go to the
funeral, right?
funeral of the Pope, yeah, right, I would want to be unfucking disturbed.
I want to get this shit over with, to be honest.
You know what I'm saying? I'm really not a funeral person anyway. But a funeral is not the place to find me out if I'm not trying to deal with you on no kind of level, and you're going to force me to have a conversation with you. Normally you would call that kind of a person rude. You know what I'm saying? Like, now is not the fucking time.
I
It's
would
like,
love to talk to you a little bit about some more Patriot missiles.
I'm trying to deal with the loss of the head of this, religious order
pretend,
that
at least.
matters to billions of people.
Right,
whether or
right.
not it matters to you, their titular head is fucking dead, right? And against all the odds, I'm here. Oh my God, Pope Francis, all that shit. And here come this old begging ass motherfucker. Yo, let me get 15 minutes. And that's just the beginning of the ask. Because it starts with let me get 15 minutes. Let me get another $80 billion in fucking Patriot missiles. Let me get a commitment that the Americans will honor a fucking not NATO, but an Article 5 like secure, right?
Insane things while simultaneously saying you're
Begging
not going to give back Crimea.
Just begging, man. That's what you're just begging.
And willing to give up nothing. That's the problem. Like,
right. And then they're asking,
a negotiation. This is why Trump is like, okay, well, can we get the easy stuff out the way? Obviously, Crimea is back to Russia. And they're like, no.
Nah, they don't want to concede nothing, right? And so, like, on ridiculous American news, which God bless anyone watching that brain rot, right? Against all the fucking odds, they had Lavrov on, one of these Sunday news specials. And they're like, well, what is Russia willing to give? Well, the fact that we went into war and we're not going to take over Ukraine, we say that's a pretty good concession, right? And like not understanding at all who you're dealing with, having someone like Lavrov on your show, he will dog walk you. He's not like vacant,
because
vapid
they have
ass
receipts on their side.
Right?
He is merely speaking the truth, and America is so entrenched in propaganda over Ukraine. I mean, they are entrenched in propaganda everywhere, but good Lord. I mean, the fact that you'll see Ukrainian flags still when we go to, like Northwest DC or, or any bougie area.
Next to Black Lives Matter signs and Palestinian flags.
But in the hood, you'll see free Gaza, let Gaza live, free Palestine. Yeah, it's so interesting how these things tend to work. Okay, so let me ask you about this because this is also I love.
I'll just wrap. I just want to say this last thing
go ahead,
about Ukraine because I feel like it's important and I can pivot off. I think one of the most significant things happening right now, which goes to the heart, right? The heart of the whole conflict is these Bandera motherfuckers, right? These literal Nazis. I'm not being mean. This is the truth. Stephen Bandera was a Nazi, and the new government of Ukraine deifies Stephen Bandera. If you don't know who he is, look him up, right? The Russians have consistently said, we're here to denazify the Ukrainian government. And so you get this thing where May Day is about to happen. Most Americans have no idea what May Day is, but it's the most important non-religious holiday that happens in Russia. And it's a celebration of the victory of the Soviets and the Allies over the Nazis. And it happens May 9th. All types of leaders from all around the world are coming to Moscow to celebrate the fall of Nazism. Xi Jinping is coming. There's rumors Lula is coming from Brazil. All of the BRICS leaders that you would expect. Modi's going to be there, which will be interesting considering the conflict that's happening in India right now, which we haven't touched on, but it's coming soon, guys. And who else? Who else is going to be there? But those are the important players, that will be there. Orban will be there from Hungary. He's the prime minister.
I have a list. I'm going to read it.
Okay.
So we have the Azerbaijani president, the Armenian president, the Belarusian president. You said Lula, right?
Yeah.
Traore invited. Maduro.
Oh, I love it.
The Vietnam president, To Lam, Kazakhstani president, Kyrgyzstani president, Miguel Diaz-Canel, which is the Cuban president.
Yeah.
Who else? Serbian president, Slovakian president, Robert Fico.
Who got shot, by the way.
Pow, he's back in business. Uzbekistan, Turkmenistan, Tajikistan presidents will all be there. Mahmoud Abbas.
Celebrating the fall of Nazism.
Now, right. And did you say Xi?
And Xi.
And the big dog G is back in town. Right? The most wanted and beloved man at every. Can you get G to come to my party? Can you get G to take a photo with me?
Well, he won't answer my call, man. He used to call me on the telephone, right?
He used to call me on my cell phone.
Man, it is, right?
Sorry, we're geopolitical. We're experts, analysts. We got to be serial.
Bitch. But yo, meanwhile, you got people like Kaya Kallas and, fucking Cynthia van der Leyen with the EU operation, literally threatening countries, saying, like, if you go to May 9th to celebrate the fall of the Nazis, there will be repercussions for, like, any country that's trying to join the EU. So, like, once again, that's a hell of an odd place to be, where, like, the EU is actively disinviting, right, threatening countries that want to celebrate the defeat of the Nazis in World War II. And, so Putin put out a 3-day ceasefire warning to the Ukrainians, saying, hey, we're going to be doing these holidays. We know that you guys assassinated a general. We're holding back on our retribution. We're offering you this olive branch. And once again, the dude is chasing down the American president at funerals, just out of hand, denies the ceasefire, as if they're winning, as if they are the ones that have all of this momentum on their side, as opposed to what's really happening. They're in the back of the ring getting their shit pushed in, like fucking Alex Smith, just getting destroyed. And I'm sorry, Anthony Smith, just getting beat up, turtled up, acting like they're winning the fight,
It's an MMA reference and an obscure one, guys. So, yeah.
Anthony Smith, I'll have you know, is potentially
don't do it, man. Don't get started. Keep going. I shouldn't even mention the metaphor.
You're right. Yeah,
a fighter that is getting beat up. They are a fighter that's in the third round.
And
they have nothing left.
Beat up.
And they've constantly been getting beat up. So that's essentially what the language is.
But their name is Lionheart. I mean, it's a perfect metaphor for Ukraine right now. A country that literally, without begging the Americans and the Europeans to continue to bankroll and militarily supply them, they literally would have no chance. I mean, and the Americans continue to tell them over and over again, you need to stop relying on us so much, because you can't count on the fact that we don't have all this for you. We got our own things we're trying to do, and y'all no longer necessarily part of that vision. So, here we go.
Yeah, that was my question I was going to ask anyway, so you went right into it. So, I don't know if you saw this. Yeah, I mean, mind melds, whatever. It's just how leftists be. We study the same things, we come to the same conclusions. Trump came out, this was either yesterday or 2 days ago, and he was talking about, he was on the tarmac or whatever, asking him questions. And, he's like, kind of gives like, this, like, I don't know. You never know, like, what is heartfelt about Trump and what is not. But when it comes to Ukrainians, he's very heartfelt, I think. And the same thing with Russians in some ways as well. And he was like, there's so many people dying, so many Ukrainians, that it's terrible. Everywhere you go, it's so much murder, Russians and Ukrainians together. And, you just want it to stop. If it was me, it would have never happened. This war would have never happened. And it's just so interesting because obviously, like, if you see the news as we do every day in Gaza, the numbers of every aspect of humanity or inhumanity is on the rise, and they're never, it's just so interesting to see Trump so turned up about the loss of life in Ukraine, while they are literally funding a G-side in Gaza now for almost a year and a half with AI videos. Yeah, no, go ahead.
It's not ironic, though, when you understand that, once again, Trump's allegiance, unapologetically from his perspective, is to the preservation of white life. He doesn't see it the same way when Gazans are dying. Poor Trump, he doesn't understand they're actually white Palestinians. You know what I'm saying? He can't fathom that. It doesn't register in his brain, but Ukrainians are blonde, blue-eyed, regular.
No, they're not, though.
Right, but
I mean, some of them are. You know, I mean, and remember they blew Zelensky's eyes. I mean, like, isn't this the same thing that Hitler was on? Like, come on, guys. This is the excuse of Trump.
Unironically, yes.
Yes.
So that's why. And like when you talk about the losses, it's not close. It's not close. They just did a prisoner exchange, a dead body exchange, and the going rate between the Russians and the Ukrainians was 22 Ukrainians per one Russian. I mean, what does that tell you? Okay. But then when you look at what's happening with the Middle East, it's just a whole nother level. And it's easy to be like, oh, it's American, it's Israel is doing the predominant. But again, I want to remind you, they are an American exceptionalist project, and this is given away by the ambassador of America to Israel, Mr. Mike Huckabee, who was, dear God, my governor once upon a time until he term limited out, who also is a Baptist preacher and evangelical, who says ridiculous things like Israel is ordained by God to be there. I mean, like, that's theocratic stuff. I don't want that coming from a government official who is there to act in an official policy. You know what I'm saying? But again, when you start to look at the numbers, the Americans still outpace them, even in the region. Over the last day, Israel has killed, that is admitted, 57 people in Gaza over the past 24 hours. Last night, the Americans killed 68 Yemenis when they hit a migrant facility. Right? So, like, even by numbers, the Americans are doing more killing, which leads you to awkward things because the Yemeni are able to hit back. They end up, doing some firing back on the aircraft carriers, which we have warned y'all on this show were in danger for quite some time. The ships were forced to make evasive actions, and an F-18, by their own admission, falls off into the sea. So we've already had all of these MQ-9 Reaper drones, which are going for $38 million a pop. And now we've lost an F-18, which is about $18 million, right? Just done, right? So it's not nothing. What the Americans are giving up to protect Israel at this point is not nothing. It's further degrading their military capacity and their willingness and ability to fight, which goes back to why, once again, why Ukraine is important. They're really trying to wrap that up so that they can begin to apply more resources to the Middle Eastern arena, the CENTCOM area.
I love how you're so knowledgeable. I think sometimes like you don't add emphasis like where it needs to be. An F-18 Super Hornet fell off the truck and is somewhere in the bottom of the ocean, man.
Shit floating.
That like can we just understand what the Houthis are doing right now? This is on the USS Harry Truman, bro. These are flagship carriers.
Yeah, it may not be the Enterprise, but it's a flagship, man. It's and that's not a Star Trek reference. There is a literal aircraft carrier, the USS Enterprise, which is the flagship.
I do like Star Trek though, so I'll let it slide just this one time.
Wow.
But I think what you're getting at, I mean, it's like the United States and Israel are, Israel. You say Israel's the 51st state. I mean, and that's just sort of how they operate.
You can't understand geopolitically why the Americans act in the ways that they do without seeing Israel in that light. If you treat them like the 51st state, you will begin to then understand they are the American outpost in the Middle East. And Joe Biden has out said as much. And that was proven within this week when we had the intercepts drop about them admitting that throughout all the lies from people like AOC, the Israelis out and out admitted Biden never put any pressure on them for a ceasefire at all. I remember, what was it, the Super Bowl the year before last, when he had that crazy advert where his eyes were like all demonic and red, and he's like, I love it when the plan comes together. And the Israelis had just bombed the shit out of Rafah, right? And everybody's like, wait, what is the messaging here? And Biden is just telling you straight up, that's the message. We tricked all the people to go into Rafah and we bombed the shit out of them. Like the Americans, and they're all like, oh, it's sleepy grandpa. He didn't know what he meant. He didn't know what he said, right? Like, once again, like, dude is telling you in one of his rare, lucid, cogent moments, we here to get it done. We here to make sure it gets done. So, like, the whole narrative, like, oh, do you want Trump? Trump will be 1,000,000 times worse for the Palestinians. That is now categorically debunked. Now that the Israelis have out and out said there was no pressure whatsoever put on the Israeli government to manufacture a ceasefire. And again, people that study policy saw this all along. No matter what the Biden administration said to the Americans, when you would go to the United Nations, the kind of place where such a thing can be mandated by the Security Council, it was always the United States that put the veto up. Joe Biden's White House and an ambassador to the United Nations. Not
I want to
Trump's.
read this quote to you. This is from Michael Herzog. This is the Israeli ambassador about Joe Biden and the Democratic Party to all your points that you just mentioned. This is literally verbatim. Quote, God did the state of Israel a favor that Biden was the president during this period. We fought in Gaza for over a year, and the administration never came to us and said, ceasefire now. It never did. And that's not to be taken for granted. So that's it right there. That's your proof in the pudding.
So AOC is lying to you. She
What?
And once again, right? They don't even have the decency to, like, now that the knowledge is public domain, for AOC to come out and be like, I was lied to.
'Cause
I repudiate.
They joke
do you
about-
condemn Joe Biden? Do you condemn Joe Biden? Do you condemn Kamala Harris? AOC will never do any of those things.
They joke about, like, the conservative, like, mind pit that you can go into. If you, like, follow Fox News and stuff, you live in this, echo chamber with all kinds of misconceptions and just flat out lies. And if you are part of the MSNBC crowd, the 40,000 people that showed up to Joe Biden and, I'm sorry, not Joe Biden, Bernie Sanders. Bernie said he's about the billionaires and the billionaires. I'm going to have to pay. You got that, and you got LC. Together, 40,000 people in Colorado, a bunch of nonprofit coordinators out there. And that's essentially
The kind of
what
people that go to hands-off protest. But not Black
hands
Lives
off
Matter
NATO
protest.
Hands off NATO.
Definitely not Occupy protest, not those. They've co-opted protesting. I mean, protesting was always kind of some symbolic bullshit, but like they've taken the teeth out of even that, man.
It reminds us, remember we were watching The Boys. Go ahead and check it out. It's not for everybody, actually. The Boys is not for everybody, but the last season where they basically showed how, bad faith actors like step into, protests and start breaking glass and pushing police. And then, a fracas jumps out. People end up getting blackbagged or shot. And it happens very often. And, if you don't know what you're looking at, you don't know what, to check for. If you don't have comrades that are next to you that that have been vetted by you, then you don't know who's showing up to your protest. And often it is people who are bad faith actors, people who may be ops looking to escalate a situation and make it either dangerous for protesters or make, villainize the protesters. And I think that's something that this country does pretty often and does it very well.
100%. I mean, again, if you're coming from the Black tradition of resistance, you saw all of this happen with the Black Panthers, how they were completely co-opted, how they were infiltrated. I mean, they've even made movies about this in the American public, None of this stuff is secret to anybody that has followed any of the oppression, resistance that has been practiced right here in the United States of America. And that's why, again, we say, if your practice does not include compassion for Black people, for Native Americans, right, first, right, then how real is your anti-oppression stance? Because you don't have to talk about what happens in Tibet. You don't have to talk about what happens in Hong Kong. You have to talk about the Uyghurs, right? You can talk about what's happened to the Puerto Ricans. You can talk about what's happening to the Black people, the Hawaiians, the Native Americans that are right here, that are your neighbors.
Yeah.
You can talk about
any El Salvadorian person with a tattoo.
Right.
Or a Chicago Bulls hat. You know what I mean?
Could you imagine being a Latin person in the United States with just the tattoos that Pete Hegseth has? That's it. Your ass on a plane, buddy.
Done. That's a fact. I also do want to acknowledge that there was a report I posted a little bit earlier today, and let me just go ahead and give you the actual receipt because no one wants to believe. So this is the AF post. Trump's daily deportation numbers lag 10% behind Biden's despite the White House PR campaign. Just to remind y'all that a lot of this stuff is noise. People have been getting disappeared for quite some time. We're still covering it. I've been covering it. We've all been covering it. It's not like we're going to stop. It's not like don't care about the people that are getting disappeared. Absolutely care about the people that are just getting disappeared. But they've been getting disappeared. It's been some time. Let's not forget.
Don't get mad now that it's performatively being done. While they're, you got a reality show president, of course he's going to have it, have all the cameras there when he grabs you coming off the airplane because he understands that this plays well for his base. But at the same time, when you talk about what a deep state is, the Republicans have never been able to match the efficiency of the Democrats at removing immigrants from the United States of America. And let's also acknowledge, too, the double game that's playing with immigration, because this is important to me. Now, first off, humans have the right to travel this earth. There's no other animal on earth that has to pay a fine to move across the street from A to B, right? So that in and of itself is dumb. But when you look at the causes of immigration, not even looking at destabilization, but the fact that the American consumers were squeezed on both ends. First, manufacturing, deep manufacturing was removed and sent to Asia for all of the high technology things because high technology American workers cost too much. But on the low end, those guys were squeezed with NAFTA coming in and then wages being suppressed by migrant workers that are coming across because even though it's a very low salary by American standards, it's not necessarily a low salary based on the standards of what it costs to live in Latin America, right, or South America. So those people are invited to come here and work for Tropicana, work for these meat processing plants and drive those wages down, right? And then people get mad at the migrants as opposed to the corporations that are exploiting these people to once again make sure Americans don't have wages. It's not the migrants' fault. It is the company's fault that makes this attractive to the migrants and is not penalized by the American government. These things, that's how you change these things, and yet that never happens. It's easier to swing down on, oh my God, this Costa Rican took my job. Really? You was about to go pick 20 fucking barrels of apples today? Was the job?
People have all kind of different jobs, and I think that's always just been a difficult thing. You don't have to be out there picking apples.
Of course,
having regular jobs. But I get what you're saying. Like, I think it is important to acknowledge that. Again, it just goes back to this has been happening, and if you are worried about it in a performative way, you're going to react in a performative way. But if you care in a real way, then nothing changes. Like I'm upset when people just decided to hop in to the conversation around Palestine, like my issues with people like Macklemore. Like, you are just hopping into the conversation about Palestine, and now I'm supposed to prioritize what your thoughts and your feelings are, even though you don't have to be Palestinian. Like, you don't have to be Palestinian to have studied and known about Palestine for 80 years now, 90 years. So it's just always funny to me when people just pop up and the conversation wants to happen, even though there's a lot of causality, historical context that needs to exist. I want to give a shout out to our podcast listeners. We are available everywhere you find podcasts: Spotify, iHeartRadio, Apple Podcasts, all that good stuff. We're here on YouTube. Like, subscribe. We have a Patreon. Support our Patreon. We have a budding community. We're going to start really getting that picked all the way up. I think we're over like 60 members or something like that. Truly something
man, y'all are really heroes, man. Thank y'all so much for blessing us.
Absolutely. We have over 500 subscribers. I think we're on the road to 1,000. Let's say, look, y'all, we got to get on the road to 1,000.
Get to that G, y'all. Come on. We can do this.
Let's make it happen. Send it to your friends. Share it.
Because ain't no real news media coming for us, right? Like, even when you talk about geopolitics, it's Greek guys acting like the Americans, London guys acting like the Americans, expats living in Thailand talking about how bad America is. Listen to some people that's in America, in the inner cities, that's out there giving you real geopolitical analysis, telling you how it connects to your life, because that's what we on. And we also got some music.
Yes, that a great pitch there, my good friend. Yes, all the good things, Fables, Foibles, and Other American Sins available right here I'll leave the description in the link. Our music is available everywhere you find music. I mean, TMK, Lil Tanky, and support our Patreon. Much love. Any final things you wanted to say, Emoji, before we slide on out of here?
Y'all stay up.
Stay up. Stay hydrated. For Emoji, Lil Tanky, Summer, I'm Amin TMK. This is the Inner City Left broadcast. Peace.
System riding to the core. Yeah. Reppin' Inner City Left.